Hello, folks, and welcome to Osquery Office Hours. It is the end of July and onward into the summer months. But welcome to Osquery Office Hours. First section, announcements, highlights since last meeting. Did we push a thing stable, or was that like 2 weeks ago? I can't remember.
That was 2 weeks ago, I think.
Great, never mind.
I don't remember exactly. It's been around 2 weeks at least.
Any other announcements? Okay. Next section is a bit of an open section for questions, issues, PRs, anything people want to bring up that they didn't know if it merited an agenda item. Wonderful. Okay. Agenda items. Someone suggested a 519 release?
That was me. I just dropped that in there. I think that there's some good stuff is getting merged, and it seems like probably about time in the next couple of weeks.
Let's do it.
Call it right around the next office hours.
Sure.
All right. Great. Yeah, I'm about to merge this PR for the Yara upgrade.
Nice.
I've added some new tables. They're not merged yet. There's a counter reset PR that this person just followed up with me to make sure I'm reviewing it, which I will make sure to do before the release. I saw Micah just put in a PR an hour ago. So yeah, I think there's lots of good stuff.
Yeah, let's do it then. And I know you had a couple of tables because I just reviewed them. So
thanks.
It's definitely a lot happening there.
Yeah.
Speaking of things like that, Alessandro, did you want to talk about BPF today?
Yes, mostly because I know that we have issues with the tool chain. The BPF libraries we are using, and for context, we're using LLVM directly because back then we had to support multiple operating systems, multiple kernels. The easiest way was to generate dbps bytecode based on the trace point definitions under /sys. But yeah, this was a lot of time ago. The tool chain depends on LLVM, and we have to update it. The APIs have been changed, and so we need to update the libraries. I just say that this code now is pretty much updated. We have newer features now that are more performant. At the same time, now workloads are heavier. It's more commonly heavier with containers and so on. It needs to be rewritten, honestly. It uses a lot of CPU and memory, which is also maybe worse. The larger you size your machine in terms of processing power, the worse it gets. Because we use perf arrays and we have to map memory based on how many online processors that we have. So I don't know. I don't think it is worth to keep this feature in there if it is impairing maintainability. And the tool chain is a pretty big part of it, I think.
Sorry, can you say again, what's the feature that would have to be removed?
BPF, all the tables that we have now.
You're proposing to remove all of the BPF tables because it means we can't build Osquery on newer kernels, is that right?
This would allow better, easier maintenance. The tool chain is currently blocked because the LLVM we use to generate the LLVM IR depends on functionalities that have been removed.
For additional context, you recall that, I mean, Osquery eventually needs to update the Linux toolchain. I think that maybe right now we do have a workaround to avoid having to update the Linux toolchain. But however, I still think that we will find ourselves again in that situation. So I don't know if you saw it, but I wrote in the past in I think it was in core channeling. I mentioned that I had started way back when updating the toolchain to LLVM 14, which was the highest version that I could actually make Osquery work, like compile and without BPF initially, and work on the older versions, or actually better, that I was able to build with such an old libc version. But anyway, the problem then, as Alessandro was saying, is that when you update LLVM to 14, the internal APIs that handle the LLVM IR, which eBPF pub is based on, have been changed. And so there's additional work there to do to update and test everything again in eBPF pub.
I'm also not sure whether that code, like we have with BPF now, we have way better tools now. The BPF code that we had written was specifically targeting specific conversions. I'm not sure that everything is still completely up and working as intended. And maybe
if I remember, eBPF pub is something that like Alessandro, you built and that Trail of Bits maintains or did maintain at some point.
Yes. And the context.
And you're saying it would be
having...
better to move to libbpf.
Yes.
But presumably it's not like a drop-in replacement.
No, because back then there was no way to build a probe once and have it run everywhere. You had to build the probe directly on the machine. And to solve that, we used LLVM, which is something like BCC is doing, but we were not going through C language. We were assembling directly with the backend.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say that maybe there are some workarounds that you can find, but sooner or later you will hit a problem, which will impair you with the toolchain.
Okay, so
it is worth at least warning users that those tables are deprecated. And not only that, but I personally don't know if they are completely functioning on latest kernels or even on ARM.
okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding the proposal or your suggestion, you're saying you would prefer to see the tables removed entirely because they cause problems with updating the tool chain and they may have compatibility issues with some newer kernels at this time. Is that right?
Yeah, but they are also really, I wouldn't say that they are efficient. Like it was the best we could have done at the time.
Yeah.
There was no alternative. But for today's standard, they are like, the way it works, it won't allow you to trace anything that has moderate amount of activity in the machine.
Because the events get dropped because of the way that BPF works?
mostly because of the way that we had to architect the code back then. Not only BTF was missing, we didn't have the newer ring buffer. We also did not even have all the opcodes in the BPF VM that we have now. Like, it was quite some time ago. And yeah, and we were also targeting, like, the lowest machine we were targeting was CentOS 6. I don't think CentOS 6 had BPF support, but CentOS 7 did, with an extremely weird backport of BPF features that was not complete.
And re-implementing the tables BPF process events and BPF socket events using lib BPF would be like, do you think it would be easier to just rebuild them from scratch using that library, and it's like a completely different approach?
I guess you can reuse part of the publishers, maybe.
Okay.
Like I mean, it's not that much work to just write the outer shell, the tables and so on. But yeah, you can maybe reuse that. But the rest needs to be replaced, yes. Yeah, and I mean, I've seen this. I'm seeing this pretty often now, that some people try to use it on modern workloads, especially with containers. It is problematic because you have many processes up and running, and there is quite some overhead right now in the tables. And the only way to shield yourself against losing events, which is not even working all the time, is just increasing the size of the memory buffers and the preferred race. But again, this will allocate once per online core. So not only doesn't help, but you are locking a lot of memory that it won't be available to all the processes. So yeah, it was the best we could have made back then, but for today's standard, it's pretty outdated.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense. And I think if I remember in the past, like Trail of Bits worked on this for customers. I'm guessing it sounds like or Trail of Bits doesn't have like appetite to work on this going forward.
We don't have plans to work on BPF and upstream Osquery right now. Yeah, but it is kind of impacting us mostly for the toolchain.
And how does the toolchain issue impact you?
It is mostly slowing down the development process.
Did you say slowing down the build process?
Development process, and we also don't
development process. And
we also don't
like
have Stefano full time on this kind of issues.
So to clarify, I mean, partially or almost mainly, my intention was to help in updating the toolchain. Lately, I have unfortunately close to zero time to work on upstream. Well, on Osquery, upstream or otherwise. And however, I had some time, but which can disappear at any moment. So I wanted to help in updating toolchain, but I remembered that there is that task on the eBPF pub to do. And again, the issue is that updating LLVM 14 makes the eBPF pub library and the rest not compilable because it uses a an older version of the LLVM APIs that needs to be converted and everything retested, etc. And again, I actually have I have a start of for the toolchain itself, but yeah, I still have to update the ARM part, update we have the Docker images, etc. So there is already work to do there to properly update and fully update the toolchain. And so, I mean, again, we were suggesting to remove that part for, again, the reason of updating the toolchain. And in general, it's not something we are, as Alessandro was saying, we are currently interested to update or maintain. And at the same time, is an older implementation of the BPF.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, and it pains to me to say that because I wrote that, but I wouldn't say it is competitive or even relevant for today's standards.
Ooh, and what's the urgency on updating the toolchain? I guess what do we get out of it, and what timeline do you think that it needs to be done on?
I don't have a timeline since Stefano is mostly working with spare time in his spare time. I would say that if we were to update LLVM, we get better tools, faster build time, and yeah, more tools, I'd say, like length ID and so on. So that is going to make things better. And we also can update the C++ standard, which usually helps with things like boost and so on. And you also cannot write BPF codes with, I don't think you can use libbpf out of the box with the current toolchain. I don't think that all the intrinsics that you would possibly want are there. I would have to double check this, but there's a chance the BPF may not have everything in there for the, basically for the Clang-target BPF. Specifically for the feature set used by libbpf. Of course, there is some BPF support in there.
Okay, but we would be removing BPF in order to update the toolchain. So I guess it seems like when we migrate to libbpf, we will want to update the toolchain at that point, or I guess I'm trying to understand why remove functionality. Like, what motivates us to remove functionality that I do think some people are using these BPF events tables? Like, is that worth it just for the toolchain upgrade, or should we think about whether there is some path towards actually removing eBPF pub and moving to libbpf to support those tables, and at the same time updating the toolchain?
So I think the constraint is funding. First, I would not, it is easy to cause eBPF pub to lose events. Extremely easy. And it has become worse with the latest workloads and systems. I wouldn't depend on something that is not maintained and that it is error prone like this. But the other problem is funding. It's possible. I don't think it will take forever to rewrite libbpf functionality with libbpf. But someone has to update the toolchain. Someone has to do the implementation.
Yeah, someone has to do it, and it takes time, weeks probably.
And just to clarify again, I simply things kind of aligned. I had some time allow in work, and I don't know, what was a couple of weeks ago, or maybe almost a month ago, when we had, well, Osquery had those issues with the Linux toolchain. At least initially, we thought that that was necessary, and so I started again looking into my old work and updating the LLVM toolchain to 14, and which is, again, I mentioned it also on Slack. That's also what prompted me remembering, finding again the issue with BPF. So it's not that we are necessarily asking and forcing this to happen now, because yeah, it was mostly a reaction to what was happening upstream. So right now, it might not be a problem right now. We are just saying, yeah, it will be a problem next time.
Anyway,
Yeah,
remind me
mostly
where there was the issue with where we thought that we needed to upgrade this thing.
Yeah, Boost was not.
Boost.
Yeah, we had to update Boost, but Boost was not compiling with. So it was macOS had an issue with building.
Right.
Updating
Yeah.
Boost would fix that, but Boost would not compile on Linux, and apparently it needed C++20 support.
Okay.
And yeah.
And we found a workaround for that.
And now that I'm seeing it, I'm actually, I kind of forgot if we actually did, to be fair.
Okay.
In the sense that I know that the CI we did, point it to an older version of Xcode for a while. I forgot if we did more than that.
Yeah, I think we're still doing that in CI, and I've still done that locally in order to be able to build on macOS.
Okay, so that it might also be that it is still a problem right now. If eventually we want to update the macOS SDK, and by consequence Boost might not build on Clang 9. It's also, to be fair, I don't recall.
Sorry, did you say on Plan 9?
No, Clang. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I was like, I didn't think we.
Solaris 9, but otherwise, yeah.
I didn't think we were building Osquery for Plan 9.
No.
Clang 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. There's also, I was saying, Clang 9 has also very initial, very basic C++20 support. I don't know if when I don't know who was trying this, if they tried to change from C++17 to C++20 in the Osquery project. But I mean, I do. It's very, the support in Clang 9 is very basic. So
okay.
even C++, even LLVM 14 doesn't have, and actually even LLVM 18 or 19, which is the current one, doesn't have C++20 full support. Anyway.
Wow, really?
Mostly, to be fair, mostly is actually what's missing is in the libc++ library, which we do use, but instead of libstdc. Like, yeah.
Okay, so there's a whole tangle of interrelated issues going on here. And I think, to my understanding, Constantine, who's not here in this call at the moment, is maybe looked like he was working on getting some of his time allocated to upgrade the Osquery toolchain, the same stuff that you were talking about working on stuff now. But I don't think that he probably would have realized the issue with the BPF tables. So I feel like I will need to take this conversation back to the fleet team to try to understand whether we have some appetite to try to upgrade these BPF tables, or what we might want to do here, but I feel like this is like really thorny tangle here, and I'm just starting to digest all of what you guys are saying.
Yeah, maybe we can find who's using that by making a deprecation plan announcement and see who complains. Because I would volunteer, but our team doesn't use the BPF functionality. We built our own, and so if it goes away, it's like selfishly I'm not impacted, so I'm just kind of watching.
What would we lose? Like, I know there are some BPF tables, but would we have the ability to replace them with something else? Or like what are we losing in this transition?
So, well, originally BPF was intended to be a more performant solution for audit. So audit is still there. However, audit has its own performance issues. However, it will still provide visibility for process events and socket events.
I mean, I feel like whatever we do need an answer for audit. You know, we can't lose audit. So what would happen to audit?
How do you mean? No, audit is totally separate for this. Audit won't be impacted.
Is audit still supported on the newest kernels and distros?
I haven't tested it, but as far as I know, it's still definitely there.
Okay.
Yeah, compared to BPF, it's a key value format, and so
streams.
It's not as impacted as as binary capture from BPF. So yeah, it should be working fine.
Honestly, that surprises me, but if that's the reality, that's the reality.
Yeah, I mean, I know that organizations that I spoke to, I haven't spoken about this with anyone recently, but I know that organizations that I spoke to had moved to BPF for reasons of performance in part, and also for reasons of having other systems that they wanted ingesting the audit data, and the issue with like not being able to properly multiplex the audit data.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that problem.
But I guess I think that I will have to kind of like, I would want to rethink with our team to understand who's using what, and like try to make sure that we're advocating for like our customers' needs, which may include being able to dedicate like time and or money to the work, but it's, I guess, just unclear at this moment.
Yeah, I feel like I still feel a little confused about this all, but I mean, it sounds like the BPF tool chains have changed a lot. And because of that, we either need to update or stop using them.
So, well, not really. So if we want to not have issues with the Linux toolchain, or actually we want to be able right now to update the macOS toolchain itself, we have by extension to update Boost. Boost is not compiling. We still haven't tried, but it might not also compile on the current toolchain with C++20 enabled. So that in turn means we need to update the Linux toolchain. However, BPF internally uses functionality from that toolchain, and more specifically like LLVM, that has changed when you update the Linux toolchain. So again, when you pass from Clang 9 to Clang 14, or LLVM 9 to LLVM 14, the APIs have changed. And so, yeah, that makes the BPF code we have written not compiling, has to be updated, has to be retested, etc.
I guess one key problem here, to make it simpler, is we are not passing through SIP for our BPF code. We are synthesizing the bytecode using what essentially the compiler uses from the liblvm libraries. So we essentially wrote a compiler backend that operates on a tiny DSL, which uses the trace points definitions.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like a bit you're saying that we don't have the bandwidth to maintain that anymore.
We're also saying that we don't think it's worth maintaining it.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm hearing you're saying you feel it should be rewritten
Spending time, yeah, for
if it's
anyone,
desired.
basically it's just a suggestion right now. And we also saying, yeah, again, we don't have interest right now.
I don't personally have a lot of investment here. BPF seems cool, but you know, if what we're doing doesn't work and can't bring us forward, then we should rethink it. Zach, it sounds like you have potentially more thoughts and opinions. So
Yeah, we just might have more skin in the game here based on what our customers use. But I'll have to follow up.
Yeah. I don't understand what the current sort of recommendations in the Linux world are either. So that's sort of a related question, maybe.
The recommendations are the opposite of what we have sadly. Yeah, the BPF ecosystem has evolved terribly in the last years for the good.
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, you sort of built on really unstable APIs because that's what was available, and now things have changed. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, I would say that nowadays you would rarely have to like approach this from a compiler perspective, unless you have special needs like user props and things like that.
Well, I see there, I wasn't caught up on it, but I see there was also some discussion about this in the TSC channel. I guess just related question, like, do we feel like those needs to be in a private channel, or could we have that kind of discussion in the core channel that more people can at least see it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just wanted to advance it as a topic for the office hours. And yeah, again, we are not saying to remove it right now, but mark it as deprecated because it is not maintained and it is really starting to impact maintenance.
Okay, so okay. And it sounded like that was sort of where Mike was headed with that as well, that maybe the steps right now is to mark it as deprecated and sort of see what the response looks like. And that will enable us to remove it at some point in the future, which will enable us to update the tool chain, which will enable us to rewrite those tables using the more modern stuff that will also hopefully be more performant.
Yeah, but I don't think that there needs much feedback. Well, I appreciate the feedback from users. The reality is that this code is outdated and unmaintained. So regardless of feedback, unless we find someone from the community that wants to rewrite it, it doesn't change the fact that the code is old and based on extremely old standards.
Yeah. But I guess my counter argument would be, and yet, if people are getting value out of it, do we, should we be taking that from them? But I don't think that deprecating it doesn't prevent people from getting the value. It just informs them of the issues potentially.
I think if it's preventing us from updating our builds, that's a real issue.
Yeah, I also, I wouldn't want contributors to have to deal with bad code by applying workarounds to make it build correctly. Like I wouldn't like to leave things in there that are maintained and are discouraging contributors from making pull requests or causing them issues on their systems. Or I guess even give an impression to users that it is the state of the art and that you can rely on it for detection, when nowadays it is really really easy to trip it and cause it to lose events and so on.
So sort of a probably a longer topic that you don't want to talk about at this meeting, but maybe for later. Would there be any change in concerns around licensing because BPF and BPF helpers and other things that might be introduced that are GPL if we change these tables?
That is complex because we don't have source code for the probes right now because we generate the bytecode on the fly with IR. I would say that the probes need to be, once written in C, do need to be compatible with GPL licensing. And which is, you actually specify this when you load the probe.
So the licensing concern is around libbpf? Or where would the issue be? Because I see that libbpf is of LGPL or BSD2.
The actual BPF probe, like the BPF instructions written in C, that specific source code needs to be GPL compatible. When you load it to the kernel, you should specify the license, and based on the license, it will enable or disable specific APIs.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so when you're saying when we write our probe code, we may need to license that as GPL only, I guess, perhaps.
No, I will double check that the GPL string is in there, so you can do like GPL / something else if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems compatible with Osquery currently. Aren't we GPL or
Apache?
Apache too, I think.
But is it compatible? Because
yeah, I guess the confusion is that we don't have .c file for BPF right now because it is generated on the fly.
Okay, and because of that, the kernel doesn't check the license, and we don't have the issue.
It does. It means that so we do not redistribute the compiled output, or rather, we do not redistribute any kind of C source file that we could license as Apache or GPL. We have licensed the generator of that code in a compatible way.
Okay.
So the code
and the kernel doesn't check the license on the generated assembly?
It does, but it is transient data that is there while we start Osquery. The generator itself is what we license as compatible.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, there is no licensing issues here, but if someone were to open the Osquery repository and start looking for the BPF code for the probe, it is nowhere to be found.
Because it's generated.
Yes.
The generator code is in Osquery, but yeah. Okay. And so if we were to move to something like libbpf, and now we had the C source code in the repo, your belief is that if we license that GPL to and Apache 2 like we do currently, that should be okay because the kernel's looking for just GPL in there somewhere?
Yes.
So does that satisfy your concern, Mike?
No, I'm not the lawyers who approved this like fine boundary line around here, but it was apparently a year-long argument. So we'll have to understand everything about this before I bring this up again here. I'm thinking that if it looks like an issue, that we might have to like fork the repo in order to keep a boundary for a while at least. So I guess I'm putting that on my radar.
Okay, but
I will-
it sounds like Alessandro is saying we wouldn't have to change the licensing in the repo.
I heard him say that, but trying to
Yeah.
make sure everyone agrees with that is the goal I have to work on.
At the
Okay.
at the same time, like Osquery, I don't think Osquery will have a problem because again, we are publishing the source code. It will be accessible, etc., etc. The problem is more on third party that use Osquery source code and repackage Osquery that they might not be able to select the Apache 2 license in that case.
And I realize
Unless they oh sorry. Yeah.
No, sorry. I
That is
realized that I may have it make sound like it was an implementation specific detail, the fact that it looks for GPL in there, but no, it's something that is actually already out there. It is official. I linked an example from the libbpf bootstrap, and you can see that around line 9, the license is dual BSD/GPL. It works like this as intended. It's not something that you shove in there and it happens to be working because there's a problem in how the license is checked. It is like that and it is supported.
So they do. Yeah, I'm slightly. That's the thing. I'm slightly confused too because, like, the intention. I expect the intention of like upstream Linux or any like libbpf, any those companies or foundation, etc., is to have the users, developers of those libraries to share the work, basically, and that's why GPL specifically. Although I do see the BSD licensing there, so is also BSD supported, or because again, if only GPL is supported, GPL once is like, as far as I know, it's not compatible with almost anything, if not itself, like because it's the most.
The user
Strict.
chooses whether
Yeah.
for them it is BSD or GPL. So technically, if you have a program that loads a BPF probe in your system, you have the right to request the source code for that program, for the probe.
Sure. I
And
guess I'm
you can
looking
think of it
looking
like-
at the examples in like libbpf bootstrap, and like they put this license string as dual BSD/GPL. And then they put their SPDX license identifier like in the comment, GPL-2.0 or BSD 3 clause, which is really similar to how Osquery does it. So it gives me the impression that maybe we wouldn't have to change anything.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything that needs changing.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like potentially a challenge for you, Mike, but I think it would be my hopeful interpretation would be like, well, we're not changing anything in the licensing, in the way that the Osquery code is licensed. So the conversation doesn't even need to happen because no changes happened.
Also,
Well-
that license field is actually embedded into the section that client will generate, and when you create the skeleton through BPF tool, the license is actually checked by the kernel. It is enforced.
Yeah, and for people who don't weren't familiar with this, you can see that there's actually like you're all seeing my screen, maybe, hopefully.
I am.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the license, not only is it like embedded in a comment in the source code, but it's also embedded in like into the code itself. It's compiled in there.
I feel
Okay.
like the part of the question is, so even if libbpf is licensed appropriately for us to link to it, I feel like one of the things I'm hearing from Alessandro is sort of weirdness about what gets loaded into a running kernel.
Yes, they are actually two different entities. You will see that there is a bootstrap.c and then a bootstrap.bpf.c. The .c file is running in user mode. It will link against BPF. It will link against Osquery things, and the usual licensing stuff applies. The .bpf.c file, you can think of it like a kernel module if you want to look at licensing wise, and it has a license that is different. It's not linked, or rather, it is saved within the binary, but it is not linked like a library. You load that into the kernel, and so it has different licenses.
And this is what's checked,
like
yeah?
Yes, it works like the age-old debate of the NVIDIA kernel drivers licensing via the kernel licensing restrictions, where they have the binary blob with the outer open source shell to basically be able to link against the GPL APIs that they need from the kernel. It may be a little bit inaccurate. I don't know how the NVIDIA drivers work nowadays, but it is something like that.
To my understanding, which is definitely limited at this point, it seems like we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, then I'll just probably make a case for my team, and if we have some good wording that explains away the issue, maybe it can go into an FAQ on the docs or something, because other people might have the same confusion.
Well, it feels premature because I feel like we don't entirely know if we're going to port to libbpf or drop.
Yeah, someone has to do that work.
Yeah, we're very ahead of things to be concerned with this. That's why I didn't want to take up too much time.
To bring up. Okay, well, so I mean, the action item on my side is like I'm gonna check in with my team and see what kind of appetite we have for like doing this work to refactor to libbpf, and it's because it sounds like. I mean, to my understanding, it sounds like the rest of the TSC believes that this should be deprecated, regardless of whether people are using it, which I'm more hesitant towards. But like, you know, if that's the feeling, then it sounds like if we care, we need to make sure that the work gets done to support the new stuff.
It's not that I think it should be deprecated. It's that I prioritize our ability to build and maintain the software.
Yeah.
You know, so if we have to deprecate things, even if we love them, then I don't feel like we have a lot of choice. So it's, you know, I feel agnostic about whether we do the work to port to the to libbpf or whether we drop BPF. I feel like I don't know enough to have an opinion there. But I probably just want to highlight if that's what the question is, then that's the framing. Okay, so Zach, I guess you'll go and ponder whether we should port to libbpf or drop it.
Yeah, and I guess like Stefano, I heard you saying you're doing some of this toolchain work. I saw you were chatting with Constantine. Seems like he's trying to do some of this toolchain work. Like, is it clear who's gonna actually do the work right now if we're gonna do that toolchain work? Or do we need to clarify who's doing?
To be fair, no. Since I mentioned that I had already started some work, but I did not see them asking for additional. I mean, I assume that there was no work being done basically right now from your side. And since I had started that in the past, I was just thinking to end it with the remaining time I had.
So to be clear, you do still have time to work on it. It's something you intend to do.
Yeah, it's just that, yeah, with what I have ahead, I think I can do that, meaning exclusively update the LLVM toolchain and not other things.
Oh, no, it would not boost and that kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
Oh,
or not the libbpf stuff, because that part was
yeah,
clear to me that you wouldn't do that.
I was more referring to the eBPF pub part, the boost. I don't know, depends. I don't know. I thought that mostly was like the issue was mostly on the toolchain. At least I hope that after updating toolchain, then it would go ahead clearly.
But on the specifically looking at the updating the toolchain, it sounds like you do intend to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna also check in with Constantine and make sure that he's not duplicating your work.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the only other thing I want to flag around BPF stuff is depending on what we're doing, we may want to consider a major version bump. So if we thought about marking something as deprecated or actually taking it out, that might be a nudge to do a major version bump, which we're probably not going to do in 2 weeks, but you know, for the future.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anyone want to talk about anything else in a few minutes? Okay. Thank you all. Good luck with tool chains.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Everyone. Bye.